Hey, it's Jamie Moore here. You're on the League of Ireland Lives podcast. Thanks very much for joining me. And on the line via Skype is the player executive with the PFAI, Ollie Cahill. Ollie, good afternoon. How are you?
Afternoon, Jamie. How's things?
Not too bad. Thanks yourself.
All good. Yeah, as I say, the home office at the moment, it's like the majority of people in the country. But look, needs must. So look, we can get a lot done from home, and I say all the various ways of contacting and staying connected with people now. It's great. So we can still do a fair bit from home.
Yeah, and I want to speak a lot about, the service you guys are offering the players and how the players are feeling at the moment. We're going to hear from Aaron McAneff, Keith Ward and Sam Verdon later on, Ollie. But yourself, how's your own League of Ireland life in isolation? You're working from home. You're trying to keep fit as well. I know you've got a family. So how are you getting on with everything?
Yeah, it's actually enjoying the time at home with the family of 4 young kids. So we're quite lucky. We have a green right outside our front door as well, so the kids can get out and have a little run around there, and trampoline out the back, which is keeping them busy as well. So say when you've 4 young kids, there's plenty to keep you busy, and then juggling obviously calls and stuff in between that, and keeping up to date with everything that's going on. Look, the stuff is changing nearly every day at the moment, so it's just trying to keep abreast of everything, and keeping in touch with the players as well, and keeping them up to speed with what's happening.
Yeah, and all the current active players have programs from their clubs and are trying to keep fit via running sessions and Zoom sessions and stuff. I'm sure you're happy that you're over all that and you don't have to do as much physical work, even though I know you're still doing a bit of playing, or at least you're still fit.
Yeah. I went back playing with home farm there just before this set in. So I'm doing a bit of the Zoom classes with the lads as well.
Very good.
A few sessions. Yeah. But look, I think it's important during this period anyway that you stay active and keep healthy and mentally. Even it's great just to do a bit of exercise, even if it's only for a half an hour a day. And say the Zoom and say the way people can stay connected at the minute is great. And look, for some people they're struggling with the isolation and the lack of social contact. So say the more that the better, to be honest.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's something you guys can use as the PFAI, and we've all been using technology in different ways since this has all happened. So you might just explain what yourself and Stephen and all the other people involved in the PFAI have been trying to do for the players. And you've been very active as well on social media, whether it be issues to do with mental health or home education or fitness or anything really.
Yeah, I say, look, it's a difficult time for everyone, not least the footballers, but I suppose when you're taking their livelihood away like they have, and say it's a different profession to lots of others. So the fact that when guys can't train, play matches, nothing, and just to try and say mentally get your head around that is difficult. And say FIFPro done a study there recently, and we got the breakdown from Irish players. Now they did a global study of over 1,500 players, but we got the breakdown for players in this country, and some of the figures are quite worrying. Like, so it's a sign that guys are struggling to cope during this period. Look, it's a precarious enough profession as it is, with lots of guys on 1-year deals, not knowing where they're going to be from 1 year to the next, like 9-10 month contracts run out. Where's the next contract going to come? To this scenario, which is unprecedented really, but it's like, is the season even going to start or get complete? I know we're 5 games in, but it's barely started. What's going to happen? Like there's a lot of worry around, and it's difficult for guys to get their head around and cope with that. So we're just trying to put services and structures in place that can help these guys to try and cope during this period. I say mental health issues. I say just a couple of the stats from the survey. 14% of those surveyed are showing moderate to severe symptoms of anxiety, and 19% showing moderate to severe depression symptoms, which is very worrying. But I say we have services in place, and we've put some stuff up on social media and our website and around, just giving guys some help to try and cope during this period. But it's all very well guys filling out anonymous surveys and us getting the feedback from that. The next step is for the players to actually put their hand up and say, yeah, I'm struggling, I need that help, and to come forward to us and get the help that they do require. Say we've a professional that works in that area, all private and confidential, that will deal with the players and hopefully get them through what is a difficult period.
Yeah, and it's something that thankfully, Ollie, in recent years, people who are struggling with mental health have been more likely to speak out. And I remember a couple of years ago, even last week, a couple of weeks ago, I had Tim Clancy on this podcast, and we did a thing called Suicide or Survive with Graham Kelly, the former Bray manager. He's now manager of the DLR Waves, and a lot of League of Ireland people did it, Michal Schlingerman, myself, John Sullivan, etc. And we sat down and did pieces, and everyone was happy to speak about their own experiences and what had happened to them. That hasn't always been the case, but I'm sure people being happy to speak now means that if someone maybe is sitting in their house and not feeling great, that they can maybe not speak out publicly, but pick up the phone to yourself or Stephen or Simone or Emma or whoever and make that call.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the stigma is slowly being broken down, but for a lot of the players, it's still a massive step to actually come out and say, like, even it doesn't have to be publicly, to come to us to say, look, I'm struggling, I need help, and then say we get them into the services that we have with the professional Mary Larkin that we use. And that, I said, that is the big step that the players need to make. As you say, I think Brendan Clark came out recently as well saying he utilised the services we have. That goes further, I think, than say me or Stephen or anyone of our office saying, oh, look, we have services available and this and that. I think when actual players come out and say, this is what I've experienced, I've got the help from PFAI Ireland and I've come out the other end of it. And some of the feedback we've got from players who've been through the services have been all life-changing, should have done it earlier, stuff like that. So anyone that's actually come and got the help, I say, has really turned their life around. But they would say that was probably, lots of them haven't come out publicly. But I think the more guys that do come out publicly and state that, the easier it might make for another guy to actually step up and come forward and seek the help that they need. And obviously during this period as well, I say we have our PDM, Emma. There was a time and a period for reflection as well, and for guys to think outside the box and go, look, football isn't the be all end all. It's not going to last forever. Obviously, we're in the middle of a pandemic at the moment, but an injury could curtail your career and end it just like that as well. So, look, now would be the time to utilise that service as well, and to think about something outside of football, be that an online course or whatever it may be, or going into some kind of profession. And look, we have the services, and Emma's done brilliant work with that, and guys are coming to her. And again, going back to, you can do the Skype, Zoom calls. There's always ways of getting in contact and connecting. So I say this period can be utilised to the players' advantage as well, to go have a bit of downtime now. So let's think about doing something else, and say Emma's there to help the guys with that. And that could alleviate some of the worries then that guys have that are building up, going, oh, I've no football now, what am I going to do? And it builds up and builds up. So even if they got in with Emma and utilise that PDM service, it might relieve some of the stress and some of the pressures that they're feeling during this time. And look, I say we've tried to push this as much as we can over the last couple of years, and Emma's come in last year, and I suppose it's just a mindset. It's trying to change guys' mindsets, that when they're in football, they're in that bubble and think, oh, football will last forever and I'm kind of invincible, and look, I'll think about things when it comes to the end. Like, obviously it's never too late to get an education or to do something, but we're trying to get guys to prepare as early as they can to make that transition out of football as smooth as possible.
Yeah, and I want to speak more about the job that Emma is doing in a moment, Ollie, but just to stay on the mental health thing for a moment, if there's a player watching or listening, or maybe the partner of a player, or a parent or a friend, or someone who understands that another player in the league maybe needs some help but won't ask for that help, what would you say to them? Or if it's the player themselves who's listening or watching at the moment?
Yeah. You say anyone, if it's a player or anyone connected to a player that knows or aware that they're struggling or needs help, just to pick the phone up and say, I understand it is probably the biggest and the most difficult step they'll take, but coming out the other side of it and the help they'll get, I'd say would probably be the best thing they'll ever do in their life. We will always state when we're doing our club visits and going around to meet players, like, no matter what you're going through, we're here for you. We're there to help you. And during this period, it's even more to the fore. But I say, if they can just find that strength to pick the phone up, if their loved one around them sees they're struggling, that they can talk to them, but just encourage them to try and seek help and get the help that's there. And again, look, it's all private and confidential. None of this will be going out in the public domain, and the player will get the help that they need. And I say, we've seen the cases of the guys coming out the other side of it and say, again, back to life changing, should have done it earlier. What was I waiting for? I know it's a massive step to take, but it'll be the best thing they'll ever do.
Yeah, and it's something, Ollie, we've had so many issues with the league over the years where there might be one or two clubs who can't pay the players, or the wages are late, or there's as you said, shorter contracts. But for this to happen, and for all 20 clubs, 19 clubs, because Shamrock Rovers have two teams, to be off the pitch, and some clubs made the announcement early that they were going to stop the wages and some are using government schemes. Other clubs made announcements this week. Other clubs are still paying their players either a portion of their wage or their full wage. So every player and coach and person involved in the league still has that worry as to what's going to happen, and that that's something that, you know, the whole league has never faced before.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, back to the survey that took place, 62% said they were concerned about their future, worried about their future. And this came out, we got the breakdown from Irish players a couple of weeks ago. I'd say if we did a snapshot of it now, or maybe in a week's time, as you say, see what happened with St. Pat's, Shamrock Rovers players taking cuts, that figure might go up again. And the more this goes on, and maybe the longer without a start date and anything happen, I said that figure might go up again. But that goes to show where players are. But again, back to what you say as well, not just players, coaching staff, admin staff around clubs. There's a lot of people affected by this. And the League of Ireland is precarious at the best of times. And I suppose before all this happened, there was maybe real hope for the future that we can build something new. We can, you know, new people have come into the FAI and seem to push the League of Ireland to the forefront of things, and really wanted to push that. And there was talks of the All Ireland League, but maybe that mightn't be for everyone. But the upshot of that was there was discussion around the league and trying to improve it and make it better. Obviously, this has happened now. It's maybe brought things back a step or two, but doesn't mean to say that we can't still look to progress and push things on. But say for now, I suppose the short term is trying to get things back up and running and get back playing, and try and reduce these figures that we've seen of guys struggling to cope with things. And once you're back playing and getting paid and know what's happening, a lot of these worries and stresses are alleviated for a few months until the end of the season comes around again and lads are out of contract and all that. But some kind of stability obviously does help.
Yeah, and it's something, you know, I'm sure at different times everybody has a little moan about, you know, the league or their club or their manager, or they're too busy. You know, I'm managing Pat's 98 myself, I'm working full time, and at different times you're going, you know, they're long days or whatever. But when it's gone, you realise how much it means to everybody. Like,
absolutely. I say you're involved in the game as a coach. Players, no different. They live to play the game. They live to coach. If you're a coach or managing, like, it's for people that are not that involved in it, it's probably hard to get their head around, but it consumes you. Say when I was playing, it was all you thought about. You're prepared, everything was prepared towards playing on a Friday night or whatever. To have that taken away now, and to not even have training, and to have, I know June 19th is still there, and until we hear differently, like, that'll be the aim, and I'm sure players are trying to focus and try and aim for that. But I say without that and taking training away and being around other players, and lots of times you hear players when they retire going, I miss the dressing room banter. For lots of players, that's the big thing that they miss. So to take that away now, and lots of them are in their prime and all, it is very difficult. And say it's hard for people that are not that involved in the game to understand how all consuming it is. So without that, it's a massive hole.
Yeah, and you know, we have all these dates, you know, the June 19th to the end of December, stadium restrictions, behind closed doors, reduced attendance. I'm just reading this email here, Ollie. You know, possible start in July or August, possible start in September till December, possible start in September until February. As someone who, you know, has played in the league and who now is very heavily involved in representing players, and I know you guys have been, thankfully, with this new FAI, very involved in all the discussions. What do you see as a realistic timeline for the league to be back in any form where we're actually playing football matches?
Yeah, it's difficult to say at the moment. I suppose, look, May the 5th is a massive date. And see if restrictions are somewhat lifted. I don't know, possibly would elite players be allowed back into a training environment that's controlled, where players are tested. I know they're looking at it in England. And I think Spain today have come out and said that they're going to start testing players now with a view to them going back training. Look, lots of ifs and buts, and I'm sure there's a big cost around that as well. But it is difficult to say. Look, as I say, at the moment it's still June 19th is the start date, and there's been nothing concrete to say no, that's not going to go ahead, or yes, it is definitely going ahead, until we get to May the 5th and then see what the steps are from there. I think the FAI have come out and said as well, you know, they're looking at kind of a feasibility study around playing behind closed doors and what it's going to take each club and the costing around that, and possibly streaming games. So I think you're just looking at trying to cover every eventuality and different start dates. But again, like, it's still, no one really knows, and it's hard for me to speculate as well. No one really does know. And I say it'd be great to go June the 19th as a runner. even if it is behind closed doors and the clubs are happy to go ahead with that and players can go, we're allowed back in training for 3 or 4 weeks beforehand and the social distancing is still respected and all that. Look, there's a hell of a lot of work to be done, but I suppose the sooner that we get some kind of start date or something in place that players and clubs and everyone can have something to aim for then.
Yeah, the behind closed doors thing and the streaming thing, I'm sure would be strange for players and managers and everybody involved, and of course supporters who have bought season tickets or who, you know, attend every week and go to all the away games. They wouldn't be able to go, but it would be football and it would be something. And you know, that report yesterday about maybe the clubs trying to claim money back to UEFA and FIFA and stuff, like, I'm sure everybody would say if it was, you know, June or July or August even, where there's games on but there's no one there, it's still the League of Ireland playing football matches, which is something.
Yeah, I think we saw a few games there played behind closed doors, you know, before there was a complete shutdown, and it was strange to say the least. And I'm sure, look, ask any player, they'd rather be playing in whatever Tallaght Stadium in front of 5,000 or 6,000 than no one there. But I suppose again they just want to play football and people want to try and get back to some semblance of normality. And but look, there's a lot of work to be done around that. I mean, say if you're getting back to that, like you're testing everyone that's going to be involved on the match day, like says the safety and has got to be paramount of players, staff, everyone that's around that at the time. Even say if you're going back to training, or like you have to have doctors on site, or how are they going to do the testing? There's so much stuff around that. But I say if you're back playing football, I'm sure I say the players would just want to get back playing. If it's behind closed doors as a stopgap for a month or two to get it up and running, and the clubs and everyone is rows in and we're good to go, I'm sure that the players will be more than happy just to play. Obviously, ideally you want fans there. The game is about fans and creating an atmosphere and all. But if it comes to it and it's behind closed doors, as I say, for a month or two, I'm sure that they'll have studied everything and dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's to make sure that it is safe to do so. And you know, we play on and go ahead.
Ollie, lastly, I'm just looking here on the Instagram of PFAI, or official PFAI, should I say, and you know, everything from the transfer list to the awards to the mental health stuff to the education stuff to the out of contract players getting into training and you know, playing their couple of games across the off season. Like, the service is really endless too, and the main link in the bio is about the mental health stuff too. But there's a couple of images about the amount of players who've contacted the PDM, the player development manager, Emma, over the last while. And I loved towards the end of last season, there was a class done in Abbottstown where some of the lads learned to cook, simple things like that. You know, others are you know, full-time education. Others have been helped to get job interviews and jobs off the back of it. You might just speak again, and it's a great time to, if you are a League of Ireland person or any person really, to upskill and protect yourself and your future when football does eventually end, whether that's when you're 35 or whatever it might be.
Yeah, absolutely. As I was saying, it's a time for everyone to sit back and take stock now when you have the time. And saying that the service that we have with Emma is, you know, it's a huge resource that's there for the players as part of their membership. So to even just sit down and start thinking about it now, that's the first biggest thing. You know, when we're going around doing our club visits, we're encouraging guys to can you get in and do something, and say like that, the little cookery class an afternoon of just that might be something that would switch lads on to maybe thinking about, oh, that wasn't too bad, and it's maybe a small win and it might lead to something else. Because we surveyed the players during last season, and that was one of the questions: would they like to do a cooking demo, or would they like to learn an instrument or learn another language? Little things like that, and say that can lead on to something else. But say now is the time. Look, some guys think, oh, they're going to send me to college or do that. Going to college or studying or whatever, that's not for everyone. So Emma will sit down and she'll go through your interests, hobbies, whatever excites you, whatever you think you're into, and we'll go through everything with you and create a roadmap for you to say, if you wanted to become a doctor, for instance, go right here, I'm at point A now, to get to the doctor is point B, and here's the steps I need to take in the middle of that to get there. And say that could be a doctor, it could be an accountant, whatever it is. There's something out there for everyone. But say now is definitely the time. If this period doesn't wake guys up to go, well, football isn't forever, football isn't going to last, something like this, look and think about things. And I understand, as you were saying earlier, it's all consuming, the game is, and when you're playing, you just want to play and you think, oh, I don't want to be distracted, I just want to concentrate on football. And fair enough, some guys do that, you can might do that for a couple of years, but I say the end will come eventually. The career span and lifespan of a professional footballer isn't that long. I think the average is probably is less than 10 years anyway. So for guys to be staying in the game for 15, 20 years playing is few and far between. So you're going to have to do something outside of that. And playing in the League of Ireland, I don't think you're going to be retiring on the wages you're earning. So it's hugely important to try and upskill and develop yourself outside of that. And if you're happy off the pitch and tipping away, I think that will transfer to being happy on the pitch too. So I say the services are there. We try to cover everything we can off the pitch and look after players as much as we can. Pretty much, I think we'd be able to help them out on anything bar getting in the first 11 on any given match day. But anything outside of that, we'd like to think we'd be able to help them out. And so we're always on the end of the phone for anyone who wants to talk about, be it a second career, dual career, mental health, worries about wages, contracts, whatever it is, we're here to help them.
And Ollie, lastly, before I give out the information on the different social media accounts and the website, is there anything else you want to speak about, or have we been able to cover the majority of the bits, particularly at this time when the virus is causing havoc for everybody?
Yeah, no, I think we've covered quite a lot there. As I say, I think the big thing, look, it's changing all the time. Like the minister is coming out with information every day, and I think people are just keeping an eye on how many cases there is and the deaths, and looking at that and the trends. But I suppose you can get consumed by all that as well. So it's trying to say we put a piece on our website as well around it, trying to remain structured and to try and get some kind of normality and a routine, and to be sleeping well and eating well and trying to live right and do things right, during a difficult period. And I say trying to keep yourself sane and do what you can. But I say, look, I think we've covered quite a lot there. But I say for any player or any member who's listening to this, any issues at all, like be it stuff that they mightn't see on social media or stuff that we mightn't have covered or pushed out there, like I say, we're always on the end of the phone. They can pick it up and speak to anyone in the office, Stephen, Simone, myself, Emma, whoever it is, and they can have a chat to us, and look, we'll be there to help them and do whatever we can.
Yeah, I would certainly say, I've no young kids or that, but I'm still getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning, even though, I'm not going into the office. I've got a little office I set up at home. I'm getting out with the dogs at 9 o'clock, and the weather, we've been so lucky with the weather, and even a simple thing like a bit of fresh air and seeing the sunshine can actually help your head, and help how you feel. Absolutely.
You got back to earlier when I was saying about doing classes or stuff. Like I'm up early most mornings anyway, with the 4 kids, and I said they get a bit of schoolwork. I've 2 of them in school, so you kind of from 9 o'clock to 10 they do a bit of schoolwork, then try and do a bit of exercise and get out with them. And they say try and keep it as normal as possible and stay in a routine. You can get into a rut, as you say. You can stay in bed, go, what's the point in getting up today? Or you can get lethargic and get into a rut on the back of that. And say that obviously leads into the figures that we spoke about earlier down the road of anxiety and depression and not being around people and nothing to aim for. So I say it's important to try and remain as normal as you possibly can in this period. And say, look, anyone that's struggling or any help they need, say we're here on the end of the phone for them.
Yeah, we also just got a new dog as well before the lockdown, so that's great for our time.
Brilliant. I'll keep you busy, yeah.
That's it. So the website is pfai.ie, the PFAI are on Twitter at PFAI official. Instagram is the reverse, it's official PFAI, and I'm sure a lot of the players and stuff have Ollie and Stephen's numbers too. So Ollie Cahill, who's the player executive of the PFAI, thank you so much for your time. Really interesting insight into the service still running full steam ahead for you guys. So hopefully we'll see you in a League of Ireland stadium soon, and stay safe.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jamie. Stay safe, you and everyone is watching.